Cravitz. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to episode 358 of the Picks and Ponies podcast. I'm your host, one more time, Pete Visco, filling in for Howard Kravitz, who is now back in the States, I think, or pretty close, somewhere in the air. Who the heck knows where he is, the world traveler. But tonight, we have a very good show for you. First, we're going to preview the All Stakes Pick 5 at a track that we don't really go to very often, Thistledown. Then, since we didn't have it last week, we're bringing back Paul's Rant of the Week. He's got it all fired up and he's ready to go. I'm sure there'll be some mini rants in between as well, as we know Paul likes to do. And then finally, after we talk Thistledown, we do the rant. Stick around. Jim Miller is going to join us to talk the late pick 4 at Hawthorne on Saturday. So great. We have an action-packed show filled to the brim. It's the last one I'm hosting for a while, so be really active in the chat away. Let's get to some of the administrative stuff before we get to that. You see below the screen scrolling there. Follow us on YouTube. Obviously, you're watching the show now, but we need you to subscribe. Tell YouTube that you like this station, you like our network, you like our podcasts, so we can be in everyone's algorithm and we get millions and millions of views. Hit that like button. Definitely, again, tells YouTube you like us. And then hit the notification bell so you'll know of any and every podcast that we put up so you don't miss any that are ad hoc and a bit off schedule. For our audio listeners, same thing. Listen, subscribe, rate, review, everything you can do on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, wherever you get your podcasts. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Follow us. The show's handle is at @HKravitz, Kravets. You'll see Paul's handle. You'll see my handle in our signatures. And everyone, those on the Betting and Boozing, follow us all. We all follow races every day. Good tips, picks, everything you would need. Definitely give us a follow. Also, check us out on Instagram at instagram.com/HHH Racing Podcast. We have a great website, hhhracingpodcast.com. Has tons of stuff, podcast info, power picks info, which we'll talk about in a second. Photos, tons and tons of photos from Howard's trip I've been putting up. So if you missed some of them on his Twitter feed, check them out. They're all in there. There's great photos from basically every day, from all the stops. There's articles from Paul, tons of stuff. Everything's on there. Check it out. Our power picks, excuse me, $15.99 a month, $4 a week. You get 3 tracks. You get our main tracks that we talk about on Betting and Boozing, and on our Thursday show, Picks and Ponies. You get Hawthorne. It's been pretty good lately, so I think you want to jump in. You can do a yearly subscription. You can do a monthly subscription. And if you want to see what it's all about, go to our website, go to the Power Picks page. There's example Power Picks. There's our last 15 on there. So everything you want to see before you sign up is there. And like it says on the screen, go below the video player. There's a link to Patreon. That's where you subscribe. Or if you're on our website, you could subscribe that way as well. So without further ado, let me bring on my co-host for tonight, who him and I have been working overtime, it feels like lately, from the Saratoga Special, fan of the world champion Boston Celtics. Boo! My good friend, Paul Halloran. What's up, my man? How's it going?
Well, it's just a shame there's no one in the NBA to give them some competition, Pete. That was about the easiest championship anyone's ever won.
Well, when you got teams that have so many injuries, me and you probably could have got on the bench for a couple of them. It makes it a little bit easier, but a title's a title, number 18. I wouldn't rep the Celtics, but I got a little Boston going for you just because it's our last show together today. Let's give a quick hello to everybody. Katie's in the chat. She's all upset. She's having a bad day because the Yankees got walloped, gave up 17 runs to the Orioles. So, hey, Katie, hope we can cheer you up a bit on the show. We got James here rubbing it in a little bit on Katie. Who else we got? Let's see who else is in here. I saw a bunch of people chatting earlier. Terry Frank. Good evening, Terry. How's it going? We got, here you go, Paul. Ray Cromley, an Irish Ohioan, apologizes for the Thistledown card. I told him I love the card. It's just, we'll talk about it later. maybe a few too many coupled entries for our liking, but what are you going to do? It still can make some money on it. We got Michael Lawson, no Howard yet. No, maybe he's a surprise visitor later in the show for a quick 2-minute jump in and jump out. We got Tom Espinoza. Thank you, Tom. Hello. Let's see. Anybody I miss? Matt Miller. Hello, Matt. Welcome. Welcome. By the way, you could buy Matt Miller's book. There's a link on our website to Matt's fantastic book. Go on there, buy it. The hard copy is on there, the link to the hard copy, and now the link to the Kindle version. So they're both on there. Go to the website, check it out. Fantastic book. Let's see, anybody else? Alex Yoder. Oh, there you go. Home track. He'll be in attendance on Saturday. So if anybody's in attendance, say hi to Alex. And then one more from Matt. I told Howard the video with him negotiating price with a pro punter was amazing. He needs to get that guy on the show to answer some questions about how things work. Yeah, and to complain that he's nickel and diming him for betting a favorite. If you're going to bargain with a good priced horse. There we go. All right. So Paul, you ready to jump in? Get into this card, or you got anything else?
Yes.
Before you start, anything?
Yeah, we should have. What we should have done, Pete. While we're talking about this card, we should have seen if we could have got a couple of sets of conjoined twins to join us.
I don't think I know any. I don't think I've ever met one before. So, or two, I should say.
Just a thought. One. Just I'm always thinking outside.
You
the box.
You are. You got to give me a little more lead time though than on the show.
All right.
Maybe next time. Next time for sure. All right. Well, let's start us up here. We're going to start, like I said, we're doing the Thistledown All Stakes Pick 5, races 9 through 13, and we're going to start in race 9, which is the Daniel Stearns Cleveland Gold Cup Stakes per 75,000. We're going 1.1 miles on the dirt. We have, what is that? Come out to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 horses with one 4-horse entry in there, and then the favorite. Not surprising, is the entry at 6 to 5. Let's see where we're going. Paul is actually going with the entry. I am going with the 4-horse Dial Direct, which we will talk to the second choice. Paul, where do we start? What do you like about the entry? Is there one you like, or is it just like, hey, I have half the field. What the hell? Why not put them on top?
Yeah, and we don't know who's running and who isn't, but it looks like there's common ownership among 3 of them. I got a headache trying to figure out. This is idiotic, but I don't want to. I'm going to guess, Pete, that if our good friend Junior Alvarado has been tabbed to ride one of them, and he's coming in town for the day, I'm going to go out on a limb and say he might have the best of the 4. Just a
Saez have one too? Yep, Saez has one as well. So between the two of them.
So there you go. And let's say this, for Tim Ham, you could see his percentages, but Tim sends a small string to Saratoga every year. He has an assistant trainer, great guy named Bobby Eversole, who I usually see him in the mornings. And Tim is a really good trainer, and he's a sharp trainer, and you're going to have to beat him. You're on his turf here, and he's got as you said, half the field. Saez Jr. and then Ramon Vasquez has one. So Tim's not messing around.
No, I mean if you're gonna have 4 in there, you might as well stack them. So I guess the one that's going to win is the one with Bowen on top. Actually, it's funny. I think that was the one that I liked the best. But again, I'm just looking at the race going, if you're playing a pick 5, which obviously that's what we're talking about, how do you leave 4 horses off that you can get in one shot? It makes it tough. It makes a tough decision. But then again, like you said, you wait till scratches, see if they all run or not. But I don't know. That seems to be the way to lead. Go ahead.
The thing about the race, Pete, that I think is difficult is who the hell wants to go 1 1/8 miles in this field?
Well, that's what's funny. There was a few, and I think there's a couple races where I'm like, man, these are a lot of sprinters stretching out here. As you could see, here's the 1 1/8 miles. Actually, we'll look at the time form too while you're talking about that. Yeah, there's Looks
Wow.
like a fast pace because most of these horses go 6 a lot. A lot of the horses sprint, so maybe you're going to get a little more speed. We'll see if that's going to hold. What do you think about that though? Is there any you think can get the distance
Well,
or
I mean, you look at pedigree, right? And I actually thought that the 1A, who's by Yoshida,
Yep.
Yoshida's progeny average winning distance is over 7 furlongs, and I believe Tourist's average progeny average winning distance. Of course, Tourist was a very good turf horse that won
Yep.
the Breeders' Cup Mile in 2016, I believe, 2016 or 17. I should know. It was the penultimate race in the Big Pick Six.
that you
We
hit?
hit.
Nice.
We hit. Yes. So yeah, and Pete, you just put up the time form, and it says fast pace.
Yeah.
If this is a fast pace with all these horses, we don't know who can run the 9 furlongs.
9 furlongs, yep.
This could be a real stagger fest down the lane.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, though, and again, I'll go back to it just for a second, just because it's sort of an odd scenario. You see, the 1A is the one that went out. You got 2, at least from a time form standpoint, that are sort of mid-pack runners, and then you got the one coming from off the pace. So Ham has basically all levels of the race covered as well, which again, it makes it pretty difficult to go against them. Let's talk about a couple other ones, though. You have the
Sure.
I'll talk about mine in a second.
Talk about your 4, Pete. Yeah, your 4 looks good.
So here's the thing, and again, we're talking about who's going to stretch, who's not. What I like was, this is a horse that's just in really good form, and you see on the screen here, 2 for 3 wins, 3 for 3 in the top 2 at Thistle. I just like the fact now we're moving up into stakes, which hasn't been in a stakes race since, in 2023. But you're coming off form like this. You get the win here. You get the lifetime buyer top. You get the lifetime time form top. He's got 2 wins with Salazar riding. So since Salazar came on, picked up 2 relatively easy wins. Now, again, he was a big chalk, or am I saying he? Yep, he was a big chalk. I did have a stat. I thought he could sit behind the speed. He looks like he's tactical. He can pass horses, which, again, if there is a fast pace and he can get a nice trip, I like that. The Gorham-Salazar combo, 44% wins, 88% in the money in the past 5 months. So you hook those 2 up, they're hot. So the way I was looking for it, if I'm trying to beat the entry, again, which is pretty tough to do, I think this one's in the right form to do it. Any thoughts on you left this one off? Any thoughts, any reason?
Well, I did leave this one off, Pete. Yeah, I did. Probably a mistake. I'll be honest with you, Pete. I really lost a lot of enthusiasm for the race when I started seeing, this race should be named after the horse Alphabet Soup, because we have a 1A, a 1X, and a 1Y. But I'll tell you what I like about your thinking, Pete, is presuming, at least 2 of the entry, and maybe all 4 run. If you beat them, you're in good shape, because you're going to have idiots like me who didn't want to bother looking too deep and just hit the single button in the caveman. So
yeah,
I would say there's very good value. If you beat the entry, whatever the odds on your horse are in the race, I predict they will be bigger in the pick 5.
You'll get some value for sure. Yeah. There's no way people are going to leave the 1 off unless, again, it gets sort of scratched down to a couple that people don't like as much. So you have the 5 in second. I have the 5 in third. Gunnar Gabriel, 9-2. What'd you like about this one? Do you think this one's got a shot to win the race, or are you just looking at it like, hey, I have to fill out a top 3 with somebody?
Yeah, again, I'm thinking, he's 8 out of 9 on the board, and that's exactly what I was looking for. Someone to complete it. But again, we don't know. You could throw the last race out because we'll assume that he doesn't want the turf because he didn't lift a hoof.
No, that was bad.
But the fact that they ran him a mile and a 16th, I guess I'm going to take as a positive coming into this race.
Well, I looked at it. So
Um,
you get dialed in
yeah,
from a dirt route. You know, he's not necessarily a sprint sire. I forget what the. Let me see what the damn.
yeah.
Actually look dirt routes 20%. Hits the board a bunch. So well, the way I looked at it, and that's what I had in my notes, was I thought the breeding suggested dirt, and I thought the breeding was actually pretty good going long. So that was the reason why I had this horse in third as well. I figure, again, what we don't know, because so many of these, I mean, I don't think has anyone gone. I don't recall anyone had
No,
gone nine,
no.
right? Nobody, right?
That's why I used the 5 Pete. A mile and a 16th on turf was the
We're
closest we
That's
could get.
close. Yeah, that's pretty close. But
And
I mean,
actually the 1A as well. The 1A totally packed it in, but if it was just the turf that he didn't like, which
yeah.
would be unusual with that breeding.
And
If
sort of went out kind of quick and was tussling on the lead a
Yeah,
little bit at
yeah,
least early.
we just again, Pete, it's too bad there's an entry here because the race might, if there was no entry, the race could be screaming all because something silly might happen in this race with all
Yeah.
these sprinters stretching out.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I can't recall what I did in my pick 5. We will check that out when we go, but I don't have anything else on this one. I assume you don't either.
No,
Let's move to the
that's
next one.
correct.
I think that's enough for that one. Although, we're not getting away from the entries just quick yet. We got the Dr. TF Classen Memorial Stakes, race 10. Another purse, 75 grand. This one's going 6 furlongs. So at least we're going a distance that most of the horses run. And again, we have, what do we have here? 6, 9, 11 horses signed on. And the favorite, surprise, surprise, is the entry, the 3-horse entry, 1A and 1X. Both of us are going with the entry in this case. What do you think about this one? Is it similar to the last one, or did you actually like one of the entry mates here?
I kind of like the straight one, Pete.
Near perfect
Of the 3, yes. Yes, of the 3, that was the horse I had circled. Very consistent. A little concerned, runs second and third more than she wins. Pete,
Thank
we'll
you.
get that
I
out of the
I
way.
would have got that wrong. Yep.
That's correct. um, yeah, I went to I was kind of chalk city in this race, which I hate. I used the 6 as well. Put it together last time, as a heavy favorite. But as you say, at least we're sure that 6 furlongs is going to suit all of them.
And this one's actually cutting back a bit. If you look real quick, we'll go through some of the numbers. 10 for 10 in the money, 3 for 10 wins, but 10 for 10 in the money, going 6, now cutting back. Was in this race last year, finished a solid second by a half length. So, has run well over the track. The only thing I had a couple things in my notes. Well, in the end, let me jump back. This is the Gorham Salazar combo. So out of Robert Gorham's 3 horses, he puts Salazar on this one, who seems to be a jockey he prefers and who runs well with. So that's probably a good sign for this horse. The buyers and the figures have decreased each race in 2024. I don't know what that means with some of these horses because they're not all that consistent. So there's a lot of buyer fluctuation, but it's just one thing that sort of jumped out at me. But again, and 1 for 21, by the way, Robert Gorham switching off Lasix. I don't know if you noticed that. I tend to look at Lasix maybe more than some of us. And a lot of the horses in here aren't used to being off Lasix because I guess they don't run in stakes a ton, or at Thistle, the stakes races don't have Lasix. So a lot of them were going off, and a lot of them ran their worst races off Lasix. And this one did not. This one's not great. I mean, if you look, there's a couple decent ones, but if you're looking from a figure standpoint, the figures are increasingly lower without Lasix. So I always have a hard time determining what to make of that. I don't know if you have thoughts on that. I know I'm more of a Lasix person, but
no, you know what, Pete? I think we don't pay enough. You pay enough attention to it. The rest of us don't. But again, I think it could have an effect here. My feeling on it is, in general, this is a generality, but the better the horses, probably the least less likely it is to have
Yeah.
a significant effect.
Yeah.
But here we are at Thistledowns on Saturday, running in all these Ohio-bred races. God love them, and I'm a big fan. I'm glad we're doing this card. I'm a big fan of supporting the small tracks on their big days.
Definitely.
So, but yeah, that's absolutely, a horse like that could run sixth, and after the race, you could say, yeah, of course, the horse wanted Lasix.
The horse wanted Lasix, yeah. All right, let's jump down. So you have the 6 in second, which is a horse that I do not have. Let me find the 6. Oh, this is Kitsu, I'm going to guess is how we name it. This is actually the defending champ. This is the horse that beat Near Perfect last year. What'd you like about this one?
Well, one thing I like, Pete, is anytime you get in these state bred races, I'm always looking to see, if they've ventured out into open company and what they've done.
Yep.
And this horse has got a win in a second. The recent race this year was not good, but last year had a win in a second and an open allowance at Thistledown, but still open company as opposed to still open as opposed to state bred. The horse obviously likes it here. Distance wise, you mentioned the record of the 1A. Or the one rather at the distance. This horse is 5 for 9. But this horse is going to take money. So I'm not. This is kind of a Captain Obvious selections for me. But I did like the fact that the horse did okay in open company.
By the way, look at Ray in the chat dropping some medical knowledge. Lasix really helps at Thistle on hot days. It helps urination. Beautiful. That's the kind of in-depth information you get on the HHH Racing podcast. I was going to check here. So the 6, at least from a time form standpoint, it says it's a fast pace, but it's the 6 alone on a fast pace. So like we know, and maybe it works better with a little bit higher level horses, but a horse can run fast if they're running fast at their own leisure. They can run fast if they're not being pressed, if they're not, have a bunch of horses running with them. So if that's the case here, the only thing about the 6, 7 years old now, you know how we are, we get a little bit up in age, the knees don't work as well as they used to. So we'll see if the old guys got a front runner.
How about the trainers? How about the trainer, Pete? Started 11 horses this year, has won 6.
Yes. Luis Roberto.
And this horse has only run 3 times, so he's got at least one other horse.
He's got another horse going. Yeah, I mean, I like those percentages, right? And 3 out of 8, 4 out of 8 in the money here at Thistle. I'm going to go down to, again, we're not getting very creative as far as the odds go, but my horse in second is Queen of the Buckeye, which fitting, obviously, if we're in Ohio. So a few things. Again, this horse, 3 races in 2024, has a win by 8. Had a race where it was a little too far back. I mean, I think this horse seems like when she wins, she's up close to the pace. 2 back, she wasn't. That was going 5.5. So she's got a couple wins at Thistle, though, and I like that last one, beating some of the other horses in this field. The horse lost 2 back, even though that was a pretty disappointing performance. The winner came back with a 68 buyer and a next out winner, which, again, a 68 buyer in this field is pretty good. Another one whose figures have decreased each start, but not exponentially, just incrementally here and there. And that last race who she beat, let me take a quick peek. There were 3 next out. It's a short field, only 6 horses. The bottom 3 came back next out. We have a win in 2 seconds. Top 3 are all in this race. So we'll see if that race winds up coming back as a significant race that we can use. But I just think this is one that's in form, seems to like the distance. Again, the trainer's on fire. Jockey's 21%.
It's Pete, this is the other Luis Roberto.
The other Louis Roberto.
And that's a big angle at Thistledown, I think.
That's the angle. That's like the chat.
Yeah, and more importantly, Pete, the Queen of the Buckeye might have a shot because there's no horse in the race named Wolverine. Because we know if there was a Wolverine, the Buckeye would not be beaten.
Oh, boy. I hope there's no Ohio State folks in the chat.
I hate Ohio State. I hate Ohio State.
I do too, actually. So I but I don't want
Bring
to
'em on.
antagonize. I don't want to antagonize our lovely, lovely viewers.
Even though the head football coach, Pete, is from right up the road from me, not too far from New Hampshire. Ryan Day is in New
Ryan
Hampshire.
Day, yeah, that's awesome. I don't like Ryan Day all that much either. Screw him too.
All right, so we should move on.
Yeah, the last one we both have the 8. I'm a mom. To me, this was just sort of a. This is the kind of horse that just seems to hit the board. Obviously, 5 out of 6, 3 for 3 on the board at Thistle, 4 out of 5 at the distance. I just thought, hey, at 8-1, I feel like this is one that could, if you're playing tries, you're playing any verticals, I feel like this is one that always winds up running her race and getting a piece. I don't know if you had any other thoughts.
And
on
I'm a sucker for Ferrin. Ferrin Peterson's one of my. I have a lot of favorites, but Ferrin is one of my favorites. I I always I always root. Oh, there's Alex. Oh, hey, look at they're very good up until the last game of the year.
All right, what were you saying?
I just root for Ferrin Peterson, and I did agree with you, Pete. The horse is on the board, 5 out of 6, and I know I'll be rooting for this horse because Ferrin's riding. So why not play? Why not put her in?
I like it. I like it. Anything else here? I think we're good to move on.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's move.
Oh, look, Pete. An Ohio bred race. This is good. That's different.
Yes, I agree. We're going to the 11th, the George Lewis Memorial Stakes. Another purse, 75 grand. Hey, these purses aren't bad, though. I bet everybody will take that. Going a mile and a 16th on the dirt. We have many horses here. What do we have? 12 going. Shockingly, the entry, again, is the favorite. We have a 3-horse entry, 1A, 1X. And let's see who you are going with. I am going with the entry this time. You are not. You are going with the 9.
No.
Maester, I assume? Moster? I don't know how to pronounce that one. I'm stupid today, apparently. But let's talk about the 9 first. Let's stay away from the entry for a bit. Let's scroll all the way down past everyone. Here you go. What do you like about this point?
Yeah, well, very consistent. You're going to get a buyer somewhere between 62 and 70 odds out.
Always.
Maybe it ticks up a little from 70. Again, I as I mentioned, Pete, when you were talking about the first leg, I just see real value here if you can beat the entry. I didn't try to do it in the first leg. I'm going to try to do it here. It's going to be a tough task. Again, you got Saez, Vasquez, and Bowen. And Rocco Bowen is one of the top jockeys out there. Yeah. And obviously Vasquez and Saez coming in. So, but again, this horse is 9-2 morning line. Might be. Yeah, Boston just got to. No, I have nothing against Ohio. I said it was Ohio State. I love Ohio.
We like college sports. I am a Nebraska fan, so I hate everybody in the Big Ten, even though I went to Penn State. But so I'm anti all Big Ten.
Yeah, I just think that this horse, whatever his number is, Pete, is higher in the pick 5.
The 9, yes. No, you mean the odds wise? Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yes.
I like the 7 out of 9 at Thistle. Also, the last 2 back in state bred in the last 2 had been running in open company. Gets back in state bred, runs really well at 12-1, gets a nice win, then goes to Belterra and sits a little too far off, trying to close into what, not the hottest pace in the world, a little bit of a moderate pace, I guess. Now coming back to Thistle. The only thing I didn't like, 0 for 2. What were we going? I forget. I apologize. We're going a mile and a 16th. So again, This is one these are horses, a lot of them are sprinting and now they're stretching out. So we'll see. Let's look at some of the ones here. I forget which. I apologize.
Yeah, which one did you like, Pete?
That's what I'm going to look at because I can't remember. I apologize for having to scroll so fast, but when they throw the entries in, I can't find where anybody is. This one, so this one lost to your horse, 3 back. But again, most of these races are going 6. Actually went a mile and a 16th and ran 2nd, mile and a 16th on the turf, ran 3rd. Has shown some ability to pass horses, which again, that sprinting, you could maybe do that. I don't know. We'll see if the extra distance gets to any of these horses. I thought should be up close. This seems like a hot pace. Actually, I apologize. I don't think I showed the time form for this one. Oh, no, this is the one. Yeah, the 6 on the top again, but the 1 and the 8 sort of sitting right off. But again, another fast pace that we seem to be, at least as far as time form is concerned. So the way I was looking at it, the 9 at least has shown some ability to close. And if we do get the hot pace up front, then you like the 9, I like the 7. I think they're both going to be coming from off the pace. That's what we're going to hope. That's what we're looking for. So between the 9, the 7, the 1, and then you have the 8, Romantic Cowboy, who's a bit of a bomber. I think all of them are going to be sitting off the pace and hopefully a hot pace. What do you like about the 8? Is this more of another one just sort of rounding out the board, or a shot to win at a huge price?
Yeah, rounding out the board at a price. And I thought the 1A, Pete, was the best in my
that's
looking at the entry for me.
Yes,
I thought the 1A was the one I liked the best of the 3. And one of the reasons is does have is a rooter by trade.
Yes.
We've talked a lot about all these horses stretching out, and while this horse is stretching out 1/16 of a mile, he is a rooter by trade. He's run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out of his last 11 races have been roots. So I do think
nice 81 buyer too, going a mile.
Well, I did look at that, Pete, and I'm thinking, boy, if he could ever summon an 81 buyer in this race,
win 15, maybe.
I was going to say they could start taking his picture at the 16th hole. But
although it is funny that's the one you like. If you, I don't know if you could read my note there. Don't like this part of the entry. That was my note. So I don't remember a huge reason why. Maybe it was just. I don't know. I don't know if I just didn't like the most recent form, but again, that was open company. So I don't know. I don't have a huge reason. I mean, again, I'm not going to differentiate them unless we get some scratches. So we talked about casual. Or sorry, did you have something else to say on that one? I think I cut you off there.
No, I thought a good horse potentially for the board here was the 3, Mr. Mobile. Again, stretched out to a mile last time, barely won, but took a big buyer jump in that race. Hasn't run this far, but again, you're not going to, in these races, Pete, I don't think you're going to have to be Zenyatta to make up ground in the stretch.
Yeah.
If you can run in place, a lot of these horses are going to come back.
They're going to come back, yeah. Yeah,
so.
No, I agree with that 100%. The only thing I think I didn't love about this one is some of his best efforts and a lot of his efforts. So maybe that's the reason, and it's just coincidence. A lot of his best efforts have come on wet tracks, and I did not check the weather for Ohio for Saturday, but I thought a lot of his best races were on wet tracks. And I think that was, again, when you're just sort of nitpicking between horses that all seem to be about the same for the most part.
Yeah, he runs on nothing but wet tracks.
Yeah, I don't know if you're looking at the board here, if anybody could see the screen, you got good, then you had too fast and muddy, sloppy, muddy, fast, muddy. I mean, I don't know. This horse.
I've never looked at a set of PPs and seen a horse with 19 wet track starts.
I mean, and it's 57 starts. So this horse. I mean,
that's exactly 1/3, Pete. Don't try to trick me.
You're right. That is exactly 1/3. I mean, this horse has run 12 times this year already, which is awesome. And we're only in only in June and has already run 12 times. So I appreciate that for sure, if nothing else. But yeah, I don't know. I think these races, especially if you follow figures, which a lot of our listeners and a lot of handicappers do, all of them seem to just be in the same vicinity. They all sort of vacillate between the 50s, 60s range. So it's going to probably come down to trip. I don't know what you thought when you have jockeys like Junior and Saez here. One of the notes, and I forget which horse it was, it might be in the next race, I just wrote maybe one of those guys just outrides everybody. But then the jockeys who are local, they know the track, they know how it plays. So sometimes it could be that. I don't know. How do you figure that? Do you take that even into any consideration at all?
Well, I mean, if everything being equal, I do. Yeah, I mean, Saez is great. I mean, I think Junior's great. You know,
Yeah,
I'm not objective when it comes to him, but
but he's right. You're right
um,
about that.
well, yeah. But except if you look at, yeah, we've talked about this, but if you look at him the last few years since a certain horse came into his life,
Yeah,
he has as many Breeders' Cup. He had no Breeders' Cup wins, and now has three.
yeah,
Anyway, but yeah, but no, one thing, Pete. The hometown guys are dying to beat these guys when
yeah.
they
They
come
like
in for
that.
the day.
Yeah,
They
they
don't
like
want
that.
these guys coming in and stealing all the money, you
Yeah.
know. So, yeah, I think if everything's equal, do I want Louis Saez or your guy Salazar? Who's it?
Salazar.
Salazar?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean nothing against him, but one of them rides at the biggest tracks in the country, and one rides at Thistledown. It's no
yeah.
disrespect; it's a fact.
It's a fact.
So,
No, I agree with you.
but you say, hey, look, you still got to have the animal underneath you.
Yeah, very Ray Cromley again. Very few
Yeah,
last to first at Thistle. Yeah, let's hope we
yeah.
can. We don't have to be
These
dead
horse,
last. Yeah,
yeah. These leaders will all go. It'll be like merry-go-rounds all the way around the track.
obviously because we seem to be leaning towards the closers. All right, I'm good with that one. Let's move on. We got the 12th race. The Lady Jacqueline Stakes. This one, nice. 250 grand purse. We're going a mile and an eighth on the dirt. We have a field of 10, and they're independent horses. We have no entries finally, Paul. So we're looking at 10 horses who have nothing to do with each other. And we got the favorite, the number 5, Musical Mischief for McCarthy and Morales. Let's see where we're going. You are actually going with the 5 on top. Let me bring up the PPs here, and you could tell us what you like about the 5, Musical Mischief.
Well,
Ooh,
as
mistress.
we come out of the Ohio bred and fold races, Pete, I do look in a race like that. A $250,000 race is going to get some people to ship, and sure
Yeah.
enough, if you look down the line, Pete, the one's last race was at Gulfstream. The 3 was at Saratoga just a few weeks ago on Belmont Day.
Yep.
The 4 was Monmouth. The 5 was Pimlico, and I'll get back to the 5. The 6 is Oaklawn. The 7's Churchill, and Turf Paradise. We're not going to count, but I thought this horse ran well in that race. I thought Shotgun Hardy ran really well,
Yeah.
and I think I look at that as a good second. I thought the horse ran a good second at Keeneland. Is Buyer top last race and coming off an 87 before. This is a horse that ran in a grade 1, albeit on turf, but that grade 1 out at
nice
Santa
field.
Anita.
Yeah.
I mean, Anisette's one of the top turf horses out there.
Yep.
Lost to Desert Dawn and Midnight Memories.
Yep. It's a good
So
field, too.
I just think class-wise, Pete, this horse has a little bit of an edge, although, you could come back at me and say, hey, you idiot, the 6 is coming off the grade 1 Apple Blossom and the grade 2 Azeri. So oddly enough, those are my top 2. 2 of my top 3, actually.
Yeah.
I put the 4 in the middle because
Let's hit the
it
4.
seems like everywhere Mike Denny ships, including Saratoga, it seems like he's a price and his horses always run. So and going to back races, didn't do anything, but they thought enough of her to run in races like the Gazelle and the Acorn, and now the horses 3 out of her last 4 are really good races, and the last one lost to Kathleen O and Venti Valentine. That's
that
a
was
really
nice
good
field.
4th.
Yeah, that was a
Really
nice
good
field
field.
in the slop too. Yeah, and the 2 before that, some nice seconds. So
Yeah.
I think you're getting some quality horses here who've been running against top-notch horses. So I think we're looking at something a little bit better than we have been. I'm going to go up. I'm going to go all the way up. I got a nice price in this one.
You do?
Batocata. Yeah, Batocata with picking up Saez. You see that sort of freaked in the last one a bit, just blew the field away. It was only optional claiming 25. But hit an 86 buyer at a 103 time for him. And again, the thing I didn't mind so much, it's not like from a buyer standpoint, it was a pretty big jump from normal. I mean, there is some upper 70s there, but from a time form standpoint, she's actually run better races. So I don't look at it and think, oh, this came completely out of nowhere and it's just a one-off. But the other thing that I did like, 4 for 7 wins. So all 4 wins run fast dirt. So again, if we get, and again, I didn't look at the weather, but if we get a fast track, I like it. And I thought the form was just, I think the form, the PPs, what leading to the 12-1, aside from the clash jump, the form is just muddied up. Doesn't seem to like, if you take away the slop here, just ran terrible as the favorite, which is crazy, but it came off the turf. You go back one, ran a nice solid third, 77 buyer, 101, so not bad. The turf races were crap. The synthetic races were crap. But the dirt races, if you get rid of all those, the fast dirt races were pretty good. I'm picking up Saez. It's Safi coming in. So, big time trainer. I thought could sit right behind. I didn't show you guys the time form yet. I apologize. But here's what I thought. The 6-horse Misty Vale, who we'll talk about in a second. 6-horse Misty Vale. We got the 10, the 7 are the outside. So we got Corningstone and Red Hot Lass look to be the speed coming from the outside, but I think that could just sit, the 1 could just sort of sit that pocket trip. And I think at a price, if runs back to that last race and maybe just the light came on or something, then I'll take that. I'll take a shot with that at 12-1 in a race where I don't love anybody particularly. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on the 1? Any against 4?
Yeah. Well, I'm not really hard against. I think I'm about to write C on my PPs, Pete. So when you get my,
oh, nice, nice.
You make some good points with Safi and Saez. Well, it was a huge jump. The race before was in the slop, so toss that.
Yeah, that one was just a train wreck.
Yeah, just forget that. And it seems like they thought this horse was a dirt horse, and then they decided to take a shot on the synthetic. Although synthetic and then an off the turf onto synthetic.
Yeah.
Then they kept them on turf, and after 2 dreadful turf races in a row, they said, maybe we'll. And in fairness, Safi's only had the horse the last 4 races. The horse started with Brad Cox and then went to Brittany Russell.
Yeah, it's been in good hands. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So I got no issue with the 1 at a price.
And this race wasn't terrible. You got Scylla in there, Beth Stream, who's a next out winner. And you see here, Beth Stream won that race with a 94 buyer, then came out, won the next race easily with a 96 buyer. You got Kathleen O, who came out of that with a win. So maybe that race is also coming back pretty solid from 2 back. And then after that one, or 3 back, I should say, apologies. Let me see this. I'm guessing that Pete will hit the pick 5 if it's straight 1s. Let's see at the end. This is an interesting pick. There you go. Yeah, not in the last one, though. Not in the last one. All right, so who do you have? Who'd we miss? Let's see. Did we talk about the 6, Misty Vale, 3-1 for Mike Maker and Ramon Vasquez? So what'd you like about this one?
Yeah, kind of the same argument with the 5, Pete. Looking at the PPs, Zajera, whose name I never pronounced correctly, but she can run Adare Manor, Flying Connection. This horse, 2 of the last 3, again, the last race, she might have just gotten a nosebleed from being in grade 1, a little too big of a step up. But
yeah, that was a jump.
The 2 before that were both very competitive, and I think our friend Rodney put in the chat, all I need is the 5 and 6, and I do think I went a little deeper in my caveman in this race, Pete. But I would say on the A line, those would be my only 2.
Yeah, no, I could see that. The only thing I didn't love about this horse, and again, you don't know if it's a byproduct of the company, but is only 2 for 15 in the last 2 years. Does have, has the win in the Pippin, so in a stakes race, and then I think the other one was off the board. It was down here, but again, even when dropping, she doesn't seem to win. So that was my only concern. Yeah, I mean, she's a horse. Fair, I mean, I have her in 3rd, so it's not like I don't like the horse. And I think on class alone, she's pretty tough. But if you're trying to knock a 3-1 shot, that's the only kind of things you could come up with. I mean, 1 for
Yeah.
7 at the distance also. So again, I think it could be chalky just from a class standpoint. The 5 and the 6, I think, just class wise, do sort of they stand above, but they're not like it's not like they're great horses at that level. So who knows how it will go?
Yeah,
I
and you
think.
got to be careful with the 7 too. You got McPeak and Brian Hernandez Jr. So
Oh yes,
you
yes.
you really can't sleep on the 7-2 morning line. You'll see I did use the 7 on my caveman.
Yep.
She will be a B. Or as Howard would say, a B as a boy, as if it could be for anything else when we're talking about racing. I'm always wondering about that, Pete, because we don't do D's, right? So usually you would say B as in boy, so people don't get confused with D as in Dick, right?
Yes, yes.
But since we don't, we do an ABC grid and not an ABCD grid. There should be never any confusion if you're going to call the horse a B.
A B.
Therefore, not necessitating that you say B as in boy.
I like it. I like that. That is some sound logic and a tiny bit in a rant sort of voice
Yes.
there. So I am. You are the writer, so I linguistically, I think that makes some sense. So I'm with you. I like that logic. I don't say that anyway. I don't say B. If you can't hear me, tough shit. What do I care if you can't understand what I'm saying? The only thing with this one, the couple stakes wins that this horse had were against state breds. So take that for what it's worth. McPeak and Hernandez, 39% wins, 76% in the money in non-graded stakes dirt routes. So this is sort of. I mean, he's been eaten everywhere. McPeak and Hernandez, they've been killing it everywhere this year. But generally, this is sort of where they eat. Anyone else in this one? Or are you ready to move on to the big one?
No, I think we got to get to the big one. This is the Grade 3, $500,000 Ohio Derby.
I love it. Thank you for the intro. Going 1 1/8 miles on the dirt. We have a field of 10, and we have a pretty solid favorite in one of my favorite horses, the number 8, Catching Freedom for Saez and Cox. And you are not going with Catching Freedom, if I remember from your picks. So I am going to let you talk first and tell me why Catching Freedom is not going to win this race, and you are going with the 9, Batten Down. Talk to me.
Yeah,
with Junior, so not surprising, but go ahead.
And the thing about this horse, Pete, Mott was not that far from running this horse in the Belmont.
Yeah.
Off a maiden win. And now he didn't, but I think if Resilience were not training as well as he had trained, I really think Bill gave this a serious thought. And to me, that is very telling. Bill Mott is not your average, let's run a horse in a Grade 1 off a maiden win type of guy. So I just think that this horse could be good. We just don't know, right? And we've talked ad infinitum, Pete, about, the 3-year-old crop begging for someone to step up. Maybe it's this horse. I did just reach out to Junior and, just to, he did say he's very sharp coming into the race, training well, but that's what you would expect. But
yeah,
I would suspect that, and I should have asked him, but I wouldn't be shocked if he had been up for one of those works, especially, Belmont Week at Saratoga when everyone was up there. But anyway, I'm playing this horse, Pete, to advance off the 93, which could be a reach because the 93 was by far a career high. But, it's a 3-year-old, Pete. The horse has had 6 works since then. 2 of them were bullet works, albeit, not on big work tabs. But, we know that Mr. Mott doesn't typically work his horses that fast.
Yep.
So that tells me, this is a Juddmonte homebred. Close Hatches won the either Oaks or one of the Breeders' Cup.
I can look.
One of the might have been the Filly and Mare Sprint. She was awesome. In the mix, and she was in the mix in some big races. So I I was surprised when I saw 8-1, Pete. I don't think I'm going to get 8-1 in this race with this horse, mainly because coming off the big number. But I might get 5. And your guy is going to be a handful.
Hold on, before we get to him for a sec, I wanted to ask you, go back to the time form for a second. What kind of trip do you think Batten Down should get? Or the ideal trip if you think this horse is going to win? Because you show here the 9's going to go, but the 7, I forget who's the king, who might be a little bit of cheap speed, and then you got the 3, Charleston from the inside, another one who's sort of cheap speed. Do you think the 9 clears and Junior sort of just decides, hey, let me see what happens, or you think he sits off?
I think he sits off. I think he sits off. Yeah. I mean, remember, Pete, that race he went rocketed to the lead last time was a 1.25 mile race. Yeah. So, you can assume that there weren't 3 to 5, that there weren't a lot of horses begging for the lead, trying to go 1.25 miles in the dirt at Church. So,
and again,
I would say it's a sit-off.
Sitting off speed that you don't think is all that good, too. It's much better than maybe risking getting into a duel with some horse and sort of killing yourself and setting it up for a horse like Catching Freedom.
Yeah. Who do you think Catching Freedom, Pete, now that you've seen a pretty good sample?
Yeah.
Are you ready to call this horse pace dependent?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think they try and get the horse a little closer, but I just don't know. I feel like he's one of those who, on a fast track, I think he gets running late. And I think he's one, let's just get him to the outside, get him a clear run, and just run straight and not have to weave, not have to do anything. But I do think he's pace dependent. And I think the hope would be that if that speed, say the 3, say the 7, even the 9, a touch, if they go out and at least make it honest, I think from a class standpoint, the 8 is the best horse in the field. You got Saez now. I'm curious, Saez had the horse back in the Risen Star, ran well, but that's when he was super goofy back then. We all know back in the Risen Star, he was sort of all over the place, wouldn't run straight. And then you had Pratt 3 times. Now you get Saez again. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Saez will maybe try and be more aggressive and stay a little closer because that's what he's best
That's
at?
what he does. Yeah. That's what he does. Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely expect to see Saez be a little more aggressive than Pratt. And that's not a value judgment on either of them, but that is Louis' strength. And yes, I would suspect. And we had one of our commenters put it in, indicating this isn't maybe the track you want to come from last either.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, I would say Louis going to keep him a little closer. Which, looking at the field, Pete, might not be that hard to do.
No, it's not.
Uncle Heavy is a closer. This 6 looks like a big closer.
Let's talk about the 4. We had
our guy Rodney in the chat. I think our guy Rodney in the chat loved the 4.
So Rodney, aka Hot Rod, in the chat. Number 4, Copper Tax, single for me, and will be on every ticket. Best bet of the weekend. 9 weeks to recover, 6 workouts since his last start. Ran a 0 on Thorograph. He repeats the race. If he repeats that race, everybody's running for second. So, what do you think about the 4?
I will say this. I know the Capuano thought about the Preakness because I'm pretty sure the Federico Tessio is a win and you're in to the Preakness.
Yep.
So he opted not to go to the Preakness, kind of similar to Mott opting not to go to the Belmont with his horse.
Yeah.
And, both identified this spot. And, this is a horse that they paid $45,000 for, and this is a $500,000 race. Horse has already earned $386. So, yeah, Rodney, I got no issues with this horse. I assume he just didn't like Tampa because the Sam F. Davis was not a good race and didn't lift a hoof. Coming off a layoff, not much of a layoff, but off layoff. I am a little concerned in that the 2 times he really was thrown into the deep end, which was the Remsen with Dornock and Sierra Leone, and then the Sam F. Davis, and I don't even think that was that deep. He really floundered. Now, I'm picking a horse, Pete, who you could say, well, what about your guy? Well, I don't know yet. I don't know that how he's going to do in the deep end, but he might be okay. He might swim.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe the 4 has had a few chances, but certainly the 4, the last 2 races, as Rodney points out, is in really good form. Top 2 buyers in a row, 88 to 90. And a repeat of that puts him in the mix here, and I have no issues. He will be a B. Notice I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything after B.
I noticed. Yes, I did. I like how you're taking that over now. That's going to be the new thing now. We're not going to say B is for boy, B is for anything. The only thing the one point I had, and I had it in my notes, has been great at sort of the Delaware, Laurel, that stretch of tracks. Yep. And then when ventured out, wasn't so good. But again, that was, great at stakes. But this is great at stakes. It's I don't think this is the best field in the world, but I think Catching Freedom is better. And at 7-2, do you like a horse like this who maybe just isn't as good at this level? But again, off those last 2 could just be if you ignore the first race of 2024 and just say, I don't know what the hell happened, broke bad, was way far back and just was out of it. And then is sort of finding himself now and in his last 2, and he's sort of on the improve. Then I could see where you could like this horse a lot. So I'm with you. Anybody else?
I got no issue, Pete, with that pick. He's a solid B. Notice I didn't say anything after B. And I'll throw Uncle Heavy in as a C, because Butchie Reed's horses are really running. He had a couple of real good seconds up on that in that Belmont Festival, and they really run. And this guy, won the Withers. Wasn't grade 3, but this is a grade 3. Never got much to close into, but took a shot in the Preakness. I think needs the race to fall apart to a degree.
The way I look at it is, if you're looking at a closer who's coming from way back, Catching Freedom might just be better. So why do I need Uncle Heavy? That's the only way. That's the only difference I would have. Yeah. So if I look at it that way and go, do I need both when I can just say I like Catching Freedom better?
Except if you're playing ABC, Peter.
Yes.
That's a very caveman point of view, Pete.
Yeah, or I just don't need anybody else if I like Catching
Freedom. Well,
that's
fine. Yeah, you could just go Catching Freedom and be done with it.
Yeah. Gould's Gold is going to take some money. McPeak and Hernandez, I'll just mention that one real quick. Corporate Power is pretty solid. Informed Patriot, solid. I don't know. I couldn't get there with this one. I just thought there was probably too big of a jump that needs to be made. But, it was going to take some money, 5-1 morning line. So I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Again, you're going to have to leave those 2 out at your own peril. The horse didn't really have much, got clear last time and still got nailed going a mile and a 16th. I'm not positive a mile and an 1/8 is going to be the best distance, although the Golden Sense, because Golden Sense was a miler, dirt miler, his horses have certainly done well at a mile 1/8, mile and a quarter even. So
better than I would have thought. Better than I would have thought.
The horse is going to have to be kept in the midst.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get to our pick 5s, we have a guest in the green room that we are going to bring on. We actually have 2 guests in the green room, but one of them is, I guess, not a guest. I don't know. He's been gone a long time. Maybe we consider him a guest now and not a host or a co-host. Let's see. We got our buddy, Howard Kravitz.
Oh, there he is.
What time is it?
Man up.
Oh, it's 2 a.m. Oh, no, wait. It's only 8 o'clock. It feels like it's 2 a.m. for me. Hey, guys.
What's going on, Howard?
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's been a 14-hour journey today. If you combine door to door from the time I left to get onto the tube to get to Heathrow and back.
Nice. But, hey, wait, Howard. While you're talking, let's bring Jim on just so he could talk to you too while you're
all right. Let's do that.
Trip. Why not? Instead of leaving him sitting there.
Hey, Jim, how you doing?
Director of Racing.
What's going on? Welcome back.
There you
He's
go.
back.
Now continue,
Uh,
Howard. Now
I
continue.
got a few quick things I'm gonna, get out of your guys' way. First of all, two new hats. Got the Royal
That's a
Ascot
nice one.
hat.
That's
And
a
if you
nice
look
one.
carefully there, I did it. I knew I was going to do that. Over this, up there's the
There's your-
hat from Madrid that I realize I can't wear with the headphones. That's going to be a major problem. But anyway, that's fine. Probably better off.
I think major is an overstatement, but go ahead.
Hats with an H, by the way, Paul. Just want to say that.
Yes,
No
correct.
need to say a D. A few quick things I want to say. I'll get out of your guys' way. First of all, publicly again, want to thank you, Pete, and Paul, and everyone else. Great job filling in for me. As you guys know, this podcast is a lot of work, but it's also a labor of love, and you guys rocked it out. I watched all the shows, the taped versions, obviously, and it was great. So kudos to you guys, Jim, Emily, everyone who was on the last 2 weeks. So great job,
Not
guys.
Jim, since he's been ducking me, and the only reason he's here is because of a weather, weather situation. So that's something we'll discuss when it's just me and Jim.
The old baseball game got canceled, huh? All right. Well, anyway, number 3, Monday, guys. Because you guys work so hard, everyone's got the day off Monday. I'm going to go solo Monday for horsing around to give you guys a break, number 1. Number 2, I'm going to do a quick recap of the Ohio Derby. And then most of the show is going to be the European Trip Q&A. So everyone should watch Monday. If you got any questions about, racing that I saw, how to bet, just anything in general about the trip to Europe, I thought it'd be a good time, guys, to let the fans just ask questions in the chat. So it'll just be me solo Monday night, horsing around 8 p.m. Eastern, recap of the Ohio Derby and a Q&A of the European trip. And then, guys, the last thing I want to say is I have a little bit of a rant.
Oh, I don't have a picture for you.
And my rant of the week, very short one, goes out to the O'Hare Airport customs agents. I was in the line, guys, for frickin' 90 minutes. I just had an 8-hour flight, which was lovely, by the way. Thank you, United Airlines. Not a proud sponsor of the podcast yet, but soon to be. I get off and I wait, guys, for literally an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. So here's what I got to say to U.S. Customs. 2 things. Yes, I'm an American citizen. Just stamp my damn passport. No, I didn't bring any drugs or any crazy crap into the country, and let me go home. Thanks, guys. I'll see you Monday night, Jim. Looking forward to next weekend, man. I'll see you then.
You got it.
Take care, guys.
See you, Howard. Later.
See ya.
That was Howard Kravitz.
Just knock him out of there.
Yeah, we're done with him now. Let's get back to the real people that we want to talk about. All right, real quick, while you want to just stick on with us, Jim, for a little bit, we'll just read off our pick 5s, and then we'll have Paul has a little rant of himself queued up, and then everybody, like we said, stick around. Jim and I are going to talk late pick 4 at Hawthorne on Saturday, which is a really interesting one. I'm excited to talk to you about this one. There's a couple horses I'm curious about from your perspective as opposed to what I see on the page. But Paul, I'll go to yours first. So Paul's pick 5, he's going with 1, with 1-6, with 1-3-9, with 4-5-6-7, with 8-9, and it's $96 for $2. So give us a quick explanation. What are you thinking here?
Well, lazy at the beginning, obviously, with that 4-headed entry, and then
perfect way to start. Laziness.
Yeah,
I love it.
And going to the end, I do think you can get by with those 2. And as much as I said the 5-6 in the penultimate leg, I do want to have those other 2, and just in case, because I think you could have some value. And then in that 3rd leg, Pete, that's the leg where I'm using the entry, but I'm taking 2 shots to try to beat the 3. There's so many in these entries. I lose track. 3, 4, 5, 6. So anyway, so it's a thin ticket. You can play it for 24, but I like to stick to the budget of 100. So I would play that 4 times because you might need it 4 times, quite frankly.
Let me ask you one quick question before we go off the ticket. In the last race, if you're doing an A is for apple, B is for boy, C is for chocolate, ticket,
Yep.
then would you play the 8 and the 9? Would you use the 9? I know you like the 9 on top. Would you use the 9 as a lone A, or would you use them both as A's? How would you use
No, I'd use the 8. I don't want to, if I get a C somewhere along the line, I don't want to not have catching freedom.
Yeah.
So the 8 and 9 will be my A's as an asteroid. And then I'd probably use the Rodney's 4 as a B. I think I'd probably use that McPeak. If that McPeak Hernandez horse is going to be 5-1, I don't particularly love the horse, but again, I think he's got to be in the sequence. I'd be less likely to use him as a B if he were 2-1.
Yeah.
But at 5-1, I might want him as a B. And as I said, I'll use Butchie Reed as a C.
Sure. All right. Let's get back to my ticket. I don't have a great explanation, so we'll just go quick. Mine is 1, 2, 4, 5 with 1, 7 with 1, 6, 7, 9 with 1, 5, 6, 7, 10 with 8, and that is an $80 ticket. And again, I thought the first one, again, the ones seem to tower over, and that's sort of the theme. I have the ones, and Matt, if you're listening, if all the ones win, I will not hit my caveman ticket because I do not have the one in the last one. I'll have the first 4 in. And then in that second to last race, I just thought it was kind of wide open. I like the one on top as the long shot. But again, I'm not going to go against the classy logicals. And I'll stick with my boy Catching Freedom. He's been costing me money throughout the Triple Crown. Might as well cost me money on Ohio Derby Day. Why the hell not?
Yeah, I support the Ohio product with your money.
With my money, I like to spread my money amongst the country as much as possible. All right, real quick, since we didn't have it last week, we are going to bring it up. Oh, I screwed it up. I didn't take this off.
That's all right. We don't need that. We'll just go.
No, I like to. Well, hold on. We'll do Paul's rant of the week.
Well, we talked a lot about it, and I'll be interested when I'm done to hear. Jim, I'm sure has a great perspective on this, but Pete, I come from the theory of there no bettors, no game. Okay. Yes, we need horses, we need owners, we need jockeys, we need trainers. God knows we need racing secretaries. I just think a scenario like this is so unfriendly to the bettor. And I'll tell you what, mainly, Pete, not because it's so goddamn confusing, but if I like a horse who maybe should be 6-1, and he's in a 2 or 3, or God forbid a 4-horse entry, I can't bet him at 9-5. He's 9-5 because the other horses look better on paper. I just, especially in stakes races, New York at least modified it. New York, it used to be you could enter, you'd have an entry with common ownership, unless it was $1 million stakes. That's now down to a $50,000 stake. So virtually all the stakes, at least in New York, I would just do away with them. Period. California doesn't have them. They got their own issues, but they seem to get by just fine without entries. Again, I would certainly respect Jim's opinion more than mine on this because he has to run a racetrack. But I just think it is very, very unfriendly to the bettor. I think it's confusing. We talk about bringing new people into the game. Well, how come there's a 1A but not a 2A? How come there's a 1X but not a 3X? I just don't like it. And having said that, I want to end my rant, Pete, on just a positive note. I want to send out one day belated birthday wishes to a woman who's become very special to me and has been on our podcast. Leslie Dorman had her birthday yesterday. They're on vacation. So happy birthday, Leslie. As I put on Facebook yesterday, Pete, I think all mothers are heroes and some are justifiably considered superheroes. And whatever the level above superhero is, that's the level Leslie is at. So happy birthday, Leslie.
Here. Happy birthday, Leslie, from all of us at the HHH Racing Podcast. Jim, any thoughts on what Paul was
Jim, am I right or wrong? Jim, Nick Zito, right or wrong?
You're 100% right. And we made this move in Illinois years ago to eliminate coupled entries. So each horse is each horse. Each horse stands alone in a race. Each horse gets their option. I really don't like the whole run for purse money only thing when one part of an entry scratches out either. But every horse should stand alone. You get the set odds alone. It should always be like that. So yeah, we're probably going on, I would say, close to 10 years since we've had coupled entries, and I think that's how it should be everywhere across the board.
Yeah, Jim. I forgot all about that. That's even worse, right? You get one scratched at the gate, and now you got the horse that's running for prize money only, which means in a multi, you're scratching into maybe the other half of the entry, maybe someone. It's this kind of is the argument against it too. Look, the owners are all big boys and girls.
Yeah.
Hey, look, okay, you want Tim Ham as your trainer. You might have to run against a few of his other horses in his stable in the race. That's the way it goes. Just talk to Chad Brown's owners; they know all about it. Or Todd Fletcher's owners; they're very familiar with that. So, well, that's good. I feel even better about my rant now that Jim agrees with me.
You're 100% correct. You're right on there, Paul. Never a doubt.
Well, Jim, I mean, that's normally the case, but it's good to get. And
here's the thing to think about it too, from the racetrack perspective of things too, because this whole game is handle driven on our end. The way we generate purses, the way we generate commissions is from handle. Okay, well, the difference from 6 betting interest to 7 betting interest is very significant. There's different rules in different jurisdictions. You have to have a certain amount of betting interest just to offer a super, to offer a try, to offer a high five. But a lot of bettors, they look at 5 or 6 and they're just going to move right on to the next race. Well,
that's
you know what?
Point.
Seven to me is kind of that starting number where players really kind of try to dive into races moving forward. 6 is not. So 6 with an entry is really, really a bad thing too.
Yeah, that's another good point, Jim. I didn't get to handle. They are handle killers. Yep. They really are.
Yep.
All right, Pete. Just another case of Paul being right, and with that, I'll just move on with my day.
Why wouldn't we end it with the way we end every show, with just you with some wisdom that everyone should soak in and just absorb 100%. All right, for my co-host Paul Halloran, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jim. Nice seeing you, Jim.
Yep.
We'll talk to you.
Bye. All right, Jim, me and you, little Hawthorne. How's it going, by the way? I
didn't get to duck you today, man. I'm sorry.
And I don't want to make it sound like I don't love talking to Emily, because talking to Emily last week was fantastic. We had a great time. I'm not sure our picks had the best of times, but it's funny because I started out first race, I had it cold, trifecta exacta. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a good day, and then right in the crapper after that. But there was a couple bombs last week in that sequence.
Well, and the thing that was crazy was last week, Pete, was the first time we instituted the start of the late pick 5 wager. Yeah. And nobody hit it last week. So first time we had it, there was a carryover into the Sunday card. That's how hard the card was. I mean, you had a 75 to 1 shot in there. I think there was a 40 or 50 to 1 shot in there. It was massive payouts. And that was the cool thing. Things have been very tough. Remaining on the turf has been a good thing. We're starting to see fields fill a little bit more too, Pete. We have 9 races on Saturday. We got 11 on Sunday. So it's good to see just the amount of horses that are going into the entry box and filling things up a little bit too.
That's fantastic. I saw some tweets today. I don't know if you want to touch on anything, if you want to wait. There was a couple contests coming up in the Chicago area. Do you want to hit on those real quick?
Sure. And they're cool contests because if you're in the Chicago area, the biggest thing is there's no entry fee for our contests. So that's the first and foremost thing. The second is a lot of our contests, you get to play like you would play a normal bankroll. So we have contests on June 29th and 30th. It's a $500 buy-in, which is pretty significant. But at the same time, you can play the tracks you want. You can play the wagers you want. You can play multi-race wagers. You're not just stuck to like a $2 win place type of wager like you see at the NHC. You can play it like you would manage a bankroll. You keep what you make, which is a really important thing too. So if you have a good day and you don't win, you're still going to take that money home. But we put NHC seats on the line. We actually have the Hawthorne Invitational coming up on June 30th. It's going to be a lot of really good players in there for the Invitational. But there's a chance to win your way into that as well. And that's going to be televised on our YouTube channel too. So it will be a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, those contests are great. And it's very cool. You don't get many where you can bet, pick 5s, pick 3s, pick 4s, anything you want. That's pretty awesome. And you're not limited to, hey, you have to bet these 10 races or something. That's
right. And we're not going to stick you with having to bet Hawthorne either. If California's your circuit, that's fine. New York, Kentucky, if you want to bet Ohio, something like that, you can do so.
Well, I assume that's a good way, too, to bring people in because they're going to want to bet the races they know, and they don't want to go to a place, especially if it's a decent-sized entry fee. All right, well, let's jump in. Let's get right into this pick. Let me make that a little bigger for us older people who can't see as well, like me. So we got the late pick 4, races 6, 7, 8, 9. We're going to start in race 6. 5 furlongs on the turf, purse 17,000, claiming 13.5. We have a field of 8. This isn't the one with the scratch. That was a later one, right?
Correct.
That you pointed out.
Correct.
We have a field of 8. We have a pretty big favorite. The number 5, Tightrope, at 7-5. You and I both have the 5 on top, but I did want, this is one of the ones where I did want to talk to you specifically about the 5 here. Let's get to it first. You tell me what you like, and then I'll ask you my questions afterwards.
A couple things that I like. First and foremost, it's been very dry here in the Chicagoland area. Turf has been very firm. And last week on the turf, you made the top, you won. So that was the biggest thing. We have been watering the turf course like crazy over the course of the week, but still, it's going to be a firm course. I think it's going to be a front end type of course. The thing about Tightrope is this, and it's a little quirky because you have a voided claim back at Horseshoe Indianapolis last fall, followed up by a course record at Hawthorne going 5.5 furlongs, which the horse just scampered away on the front end and never looked back. And then you get that last race where, again, it was just not the greatest race. But that race for me was actually kind of key coming into here because instead of coming off of a layoff into the spot, you at least have the one start coming back. And Tightrope, I think there's really only one horse that challenges on the lead, and that's Dragon Drew from the inside. So if Tightrope can clear, this one may take him the whole way around.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I guess the one concern, and I didn't know if this was just weird or this was just me reading in too much of it, but they came off the claim. The horse got claimed right in the last for what, 10, if I remember correctly, if I'm looking at it, and then they're putting it right back in for 13.5. I didn't know if that was something where, for a horse that just ran 2 back, ran sort of a monster race, it's not like 13.5 is so much more that you're making big money back off of it. I didn't know if you thought that that was a little bit funny. And then there was also up for claim, obviously 3 back. Did you think there was anything there, or you just think that's sort of business as usual and you don't think twice about it?
It's kind of having to know the connections a little bit. So Hugo Rodriguez is the son of Eduardo Rodriguez. Eduardo Rodriguez was a longtime assistant to Tom Tamillo. So people that play the Chicago circuit that know Tommy Tamillo, he was a 100% a claiming trainer. And his kind of thing was claim a horse, turn it around 2 weeks later. If you can win and get that horse claimed again, then you're coming out ahead. So that's kind of the way Hugo's played things. And you look at his record, 20 of 37 in the top 3 on the meet has been very solid, but he's thinking, okay, I can come out of this race. I can think that I can jump it up a little bit and grab a purse on top of it. And if I can do the 2 things and get claimed and move on, that's perfectly fine for a horse that's a gelding, a horse that's kind of distance limited a little bit too, but I think this is the right spot.
Okay. And mine was, I think, off the long layoff too. And again, I think I was just, anytime I'm looking at a 7-5 shot, I'm like, is there any kinks in the armor that I can sort of get to? The one thing you said, Hugo Rodriguez, 3 straight wins first after the claim. I noticed when I was looking through 0 for 6 wins, very, very small sample size, going dirt to turf first after the claim. So again, I always look for a little something if I'm trying to beat a favorite, but I just wanted to hash that out because it is a big chalk. You talked about the 1.
Yep.
You think Dragon Drew. 1 Dragon Drew, you think more of a pace scenario that this horse can challenge, or do you think, hey, so what do you think? How do you think this horse wins though if the 7, if I should say the 5 is the one that is the clear speed and potentially is the best speed?
Then he probably doesn't win. He probably chases for place the whole way around. But the thing about
it has to be if he gets the lead, then that's
he has to beat the other to the top. The weird thing about our turf too, they're very tight turns. The rail's all the way on the inside, so it's even tighter turns. And actually, outside posts get a little bit more of an advantage, kind of angling into the turn. Dragon Drew's going to have to try to scamper away and do one of 2 things. You're either having to get the jump on Tightrope. If you're duking it out head and head, it compromises both of them and sets it up for a horse like Simple Logic. Or you're just left to chase the whole way around and say, I'm content with running 1-2 in this spot. And the connections, maybe. This is a horse that's been down around the $5,000, $8,000 claiming tag. It's a better horse on grass, but I think they're probably left to try to just have to go, hope Tightrope either misses the break or something happens there, and then try to just steal the race on the front end.
Yeah, my concern a little bit. You get to 9, maybe you're just not as just not as sharp. Maybe you don't break as sharp as you used to. Maybe you just don't have that quick speed. And if you do have a good speed horse to the outside, I think that was why I put this horse in 3rd. Actually, Jim Pilares has a good question for you. I'll read it real quick. Does calling races help your handicapping in that you're more aware of trip issues, race flow, etc., or are you concentrating so much on calling the race well that you actually miss things? I think that's a great question. What do you think?
It's one of those things when I'm calling races, I have to actually go back and do a little bit more work making the trip notes. And It's for this reason. Just as a race announcer, you don't always know if everybody's watching the race on the screen or if they can see all the horses on the screen. So the way that I was taught was for a route race, you want to get through the entire field from start to back 3 different times and then focus on the what was going on at the front of the pack. A sprint, you want to get from the front to the back twice before you get into the lane and then focus on the front. So really, it kind of does change the focus a little bit. And you miss kind of some of those subtle moves from horses that are maybe closing a little bit later in the lane. So you do have to go back and kind of take those trip notes again. But yeah, concentration is definitely the key because you want to get the names right for the players too. But it is one of those things where a little bit more work goes into it when I'm announcing races.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I'm not sure I have the mental capacity to call a race
It's
like
tough.
that. I probably would forget. Yeah, I would definitely forget or get distracted or something. I just wanted to point out real quick the 7 Simple
Yes.
Logic was the horse I had in second. You have in third. If for no other reason, just look at that. 29 starts, 10 seconds, 7 starts at Hawthorne, 1 win, 6 seconds. That's unbelievable. If you really love the 5, do you just say, hey, what the hell? I'm just going to cold punch this. If it, depending on what it's paying, maybe I just cold punch this because this horse loves to run second. And if that 1 does try and go with the 5 and tires out, this one can sort of sit off and just collect the pieces.
Yeah, and what I'm curious about too is it was really a lot of kind of route races for a while for Simple Logic. And then you see those 2 turf sprints in New Orleans, and each of those races was sit back early, try to close ground late. And really, I mean, one was a 4th place finish, the other was an 8th, but it was the same margin to the winner, really, when all was said and done. And that's kind of what the trip's going to be. Simple Logic can win if Dragon Drew and Tyrope hook up and both come back to the field. I just think the way the chorus is playing probably plays against the horse a little bit for winning, but this is one that could pick up the pieces underneath.
Awesome. All right. Anybody else here? Are you good to move on?
That's it. Those are the only 3 that I think you need to focus on in that race.
Excellent. All right. Let's go to the 7th. We got claiming 5,000, purse 11.5. We're going 6 furlongs on the dirt. We have a field of 9, or is it? Nope. This is the one. This is
nope. Yeah, there's 9 in here.
Field of 9. Yep. We got Rivs on a roll at 9-5 coming out of the 9 hole, and you are going with the 7. I am going with the 9. You're going with Iron Man Richie. Since you are the guest, I am going to let you, as usual, talk first. What do you like about this 7 horse?
You know what? There's a couple of things that I like about Iron Man Richie. One is just the fact that Rivs on a roll is an all or nothing horse. Has to be on the lead and take him the whole way around. He gets headed. He usually folds up. The thing about Iron Man Richie, he came off that last race. That was an 11-month layoff coming into that spot. And I was expecting the horse was going to need a start. He ran way better than I would have expected in that race and finished in second. And Rachel Slavinsky, she's a bug rider that's kind of just getting started. But when you watch her, she rides a very smart race. She positions herself well. She's able to anticipate what's going on ahead of her. She finishes well, too. And I've really liked what I've seen out of her because a lot of times bug riders early on, you're just trying to get your feet wet. You're trying to learn a little bit. She's very quickly picking up more live mounts because she's riding so well. This is one that she rides back in this spot. They're not going to be on the lead in this race either, Pete, because Rivs on a roll is going to go from the outside. That could benefit a horse like Iron Man Richie. I'm just looking for a little bit more of a price in here. And I think this is a horse that maybe rates and runs on a little late.
Yeah, honestly, for me, just looking at the paper, that it always scares me when you see a horse that's 2 for 21, 1 for 11, 0 for 8, 1 for 11 at Hawthorne, 0 for 8 at the distance. It makes you a little nervous. Again, we have a little bit of second-itis. Looks like a board horse at 6-1. But again, that always scares me just a touch. And when you're talking horizontal plays, obviously you're looking for wins. But I agree with you. This was a tough one for me for that reason. I was like, well, for a pick 4, no. For a try, exacta, super, or something like that, definitely I can see that happening. Let's go out. You talked about Rivs on a roll. Let's talk about this horse. Pure speed, like you said, sort of dropping down a bit. Do you think, how does this horse get beat? I guess just doesn't hold on because maybe doesn't hold on all that often lately. Is that sort of your thinking?
The only way the way the horse gets beat is if the 2 hurts so bad, goes out there and just challenges early on, or Rivs on a roll has to work a little bit too hard from the outside. Because that last race, there wasn't a whole lot really to challenge early on. I thought he was able to kind of go out there and set the fractions he wanted. And then he got 45 and 3 to the half, which I thought was not overly fast. It was okay in my estimation for how the track was playing that day. But he just completely folded the second that he got headed in the lane. So that's the key. He's going to be a hard send from the outside. If he can clear, he's going to be very tough. But if he gets pressed at all, I think that's something that could compromise him a little bit. So he's just an all or nothing horse for me in this spot.
I mean, at 2 to 5 too, that's a tough one when your horse gets on the lead and just folds the tent like that.
Right.
That's pretty bad. Yeah, I guess my thought was hasn't won on the dirt. The one thing I did notice, hasn't won on the dirt since November of 22, because you're going back a ways, because a lot of those wins were on the synth, where this horse is 4 for 5 in the money. So again, if you're looking to beat a horse, like you said, you get a horse who's all or nothing. If does get contested, seems to fold a little bit. And if I'm trying to beat a horse like this, that's not a bad way. Larry Ravelli, by the way, 7 for 18 wins, 15 for 18 in the money with 50% plus claiming tag drops and dirt sprints at Hawthorne. So that is super specific.
Oh, yeah.
But when I saw that number, I was like, yeah, Ravelli, when he comes here, obviously it's his track. He knows what he's doing. So, but it's not like he hasn't had this horse, and this horse is sort of folded and burnt a lot of money along the way as he's been doing it.
He's got some good backers there too for owners, so they're not really afraid to drop. These are guys that have some money. Some of these guys that have actually played in the NHC that we've seen before. One of them, the Dundalk 5 LLC, is Tim Kinlan. He played this last year in the LLC or the NHC. So he's a guy that they want to win. They want to go out there and get victories in that. So they're going to drop to a spot to win. Scroll up to the 8-horse real quick, Pete, if you don't mind. Code to Win, only for the fact that you look at Code to Win. There's a lot of Delta races, Prairie Meadows races, that kind of stuff. But then all of a sudden, you look at the record at Hawthorne, 9 starts over the track, 9 times on the board, with 5 of those coming as victories. Jan Arnett's been very good at Hawthorne this meet too, and he spots his horses so nicely. I don't know if they can win in this race, but if you're looking for horses to look up to underneath in your gimmicks, Code to Win's a horse that has never missed the board in 9 starts over the track.
Well, the one thing you like to see too, 2 back, the horse bled, as you can see in the notes there, was vanned off, but did come back and did come back under Arnett, came back, ran solid, was the favorite, but was in the mud, ran solid third. But you at least like to see that off bleeding. You never know how they're going to react to that. So you like to see that. So maybe this is now the step up. And again, if you're getting a 9-2 shot, I really like this one. I had this one in third, and that was sort of the reason. And you see, 21 out of 26 at the distance. So, everything looks good for this one. Again, it just isn't going to be too far back. And if the 9 gets on the lead and just goes, then it's going to be hard to, I assume, to run that horse down. But I think that was the only other horse I wanted to say getting paid. Was there anything?
Paid the 6, yep.
Yeah, I was trying to think if there's anything big. What do you have on this one? I had a couple thoughts, but go ahead.
You know what? Again, it's just kind of the trip that I think the horse is going to get. That last out was 3 to 5. That was much easier company, but the horse actually had a dream trip there. They're probably going to rate back in a similar position with Ironman Richie. The one just kind of interesting note, and it's more a side note than anything else. Chris Amy's riding this horse. On Saturday, we're honoring Chris Amy as Hawthorne's all-time leading rider. He's won over 1,800 races at Hawthorne Racecourse. So it's one of those things where we're going to go out there, do some presentations for him, that kind of stuff. This is one of those horses that he has one of his best chances of winning on the card for. So getting paid's a horse that I thought at least was worth a mention to, and I think we'll get some backing at the windows.
Yeah, no, I kind of like this one, but I was wondering if to step up, and obviously the horses in the company a little better. I did see Brittany Vandenberg, 39% win, 65% in the money, second spot after the claim with a win in the first after the claim. So comes back. It's not just, hey, first after is good, but the next one's not so great, is awesome second off as well.
Well, and if you go back, if you ever have a chance, go back and watch the race Hop and John ran last week. This is a horse that won last week and won really impressively. Won by 8 or 9 lengths going away. It was really there you go, 12 lengths going away. So that was a big number. I mean, this is a horse that stalked the pace, was 5 to 1 in there, and when they turned for home, just absolutely took off. Came flying in the lane. So maybe coming out of a little bit of a key race there, and maybe that number is a little bit better for getting paid out of that start back on May 19th than what it shows on paper.
Yeah, with Slavinsky on top as well, which that would just bring nice little callback there. All right, I think we're good on that one. Let's move on. Let's move on to the eighth race. We have claiming 13.5, mile and a 16th on the turf, purse 17 grand. Here we have a field of 12 with one also eligible. Is this the one? I'm going to get to the one. Which one is it?
Yeah, this is the one. The 4 Red Hornets scratching out of this race. Red Hornets in a race on Sunday.
Okay, yes. So we actually only have a field of 10 in the main body. And the favorite is the 1 River Redemption. And you are going with the 7 Wicked Surprise. I'm going with the 8th Dyna Blue, who I think is a pretty good price if I'm
Yeah.
remembering
Oh, yeah.
correctly. So let's talk first about your 7, and then I'll get your opinion on the 8, because I kind of like this horse, and there were some things that I liked about it. So how do you not love a horse, by the way, that lost by 39 and 51 in the last 2? I mean, that's perfect with a 0 and a 5. You know, how do you give me some good news on this one after those last 2?
And I laid the horse at 5-1 in the morning line. That's the thing about
That's either some inside knowledge or something's going on there.
It's how this race kind of unfolds, Pete. I mean, River Redemption's is the one that's been the most consistent on the turf of late.
Yep.
But when you dig through for some of these others, you find turf form. And here, I mean, you look at the numbers, it's very clear. All right, the numbers in black are really bad on the dirt. The numbers in blue are okay on the synthetic. But then all of a sudden you get the 2 numbers in green and you're like, whoa, wait a second. I have to go back and take a look now. And this is a horse that ran 2 really big races, condition 20 claimer, and then an A other than allowance, 77 and 75 number.
Yeah.
Those are going to match up with anybody in this field. So this is one of those things where you're not necessarily saying, hey, they've set the horse up for this race, because they haven't necessarily had the opportunities to get on the turf at Hawthorne yet this meet. But they finally find the spot, and just with the chance to possibly catch a little bit of a price in here, I know the connections have been going very well of late too. So that's something that I wanted to look at. Wine Boss started out very slowly. You see only the 1 win, 12 times second or third out of 22 starters. So they're hitting the board, and I'm just looking at that past turf form, thinking this is a horse that I think really is going to turn things around.
No, I'm glad you said that, because I thought the same thing, and it's just hard. You look and you go, man, the form is god awful. But you go, hey, we're getting the horse back on the turf. I'm sure there were some reasons why, like you said, that they couldn't be on the turf. The synth form was awful, but hey, if he runs back to those turf races, right in the mix, and I assume maybe that price even floats up just because someone says, "What do you mean I'm betting a 5-1 shot that lost by 90 lengths in the last 2 and like almost 200? It seems like in the last few there." Let me jump to mine. I'm going to jump to my 8 Dyna Blue real quick. So I think this is actually a little bit similar, where I thought this horse's best races were on the turf. And again, we talk a lot about muddied up form. And sometimes if players don't see that sequential good form in a row, but they don't look at it and say, well, the last 4 weren't all on the same surface or conditions or whatever distance. You have to sort of sprinkle through. And I thought this horse had some. And even if you just look here, you say, you're talking 15 out of 26, 8 for 14 at Hawthorne. Again, only 3 wins, but I like that hits the board. Got back on turf in the last, but it was against better, I assume, even though it was 69-1. I mean, talking better. Claiming 25, it's much better, right?
Yep.
So now we're dropping back down, and that race wasn't great. Only lost by 5 1/4 though, so it wasn't like it was 1,000 back. So I just thought at 12-1 in a race where I didn't love anyone, and I thought it was relatively even, I'm going to see if we can get a horse who can go back to, like you were talking about with the last horse, if we can go back to this race here, which was coming off the pace, but a 79.93, that puts this horse right in the mix. And all these turf races back here don't put this horse too far off. What are your thoughts on this one? Am I crazy or
no, not at all. Fly Nightly, the horse that he continuously lost to last year, was a very legitimate racehorse. That last out, Soul Coaxing is an allowance horse who's been an allowance winner. Sailing Solo was a long-time allowance and optional claiming allowance winner. And that last race I thought was a legitimate race, again, on a course that was all speed.
Yep.
And Dyna Blue just kind of was left there and ran evenly. But now you go a 16th of a mile further. The distance suits for the racehorse. I like that you keep the rider aboard too in Giles. I think that's a plus. And again, you're going to get a price because you're going to look and say, okay, well, the horse has finished 6th in the last 3 starts. Well, you have the opportunity to catch a price there. It wouldn't shock me by any means.
No, I'm with you. I'm glad. I was hoping that was one I definitely wanted to talk about. We have the 1 River Redemption, 3-1. You have this horse in second. I have the horse in second. Looks pretty logical just based on I assume just a class advantage and sort of coming down. What were your thoughts? Is it mostly that, or is there anything else? And you sort of look back, and this is another muddied up.
Right. It's
performance here.
Yeah, it's class consistency, the ability to show a little bit of speed when needed. I mean, you get the inside draw. everything just kind of lines up, I think, for the horse to be a factor. You're dropping down in class a little bit. You are dropping below the level of the claim. So that's the one thing that you have to kind of bring into the mix a little bit is, okay, have they just said we're fed up a little and now we're trying to dump and go out there? So that's the one thing too, especially when the trainer is the owner of the racehorse. So he wants to get some return on his investment too. So that was the one thing that worried me a little bit. And then the other horse I just want to touch on briefly, Pete, if you don't mind, was the 11. That's Rogue Element.
Can I just, for our people, I think it's probably seen on the screen. I just wanted to give two stats again, because we're talking about a favorite here. Terry Young, who's 31% at the meet and 24% on the year, so looks fantastic. 1 for 18 going dirt to turf, and 1 for 25. I mean, and it's dirt only because, you came off, but still, it's still technically 1 for 25 on the turf at Hawthorne, which again was surprising to me because he has such a good percentage that you're like, well, it's a pretty solid trainer to have that number. That jumps out at me. It's not like it's just some crap trainer who has crap statistic on the turf. But go ahead. You wanted to talk about the 11?
The 11 Rogue Element, just real briefly too, because again, this is a horse that is much like the other horse I picked in here, Wicked Surprise. Look, form terrible, and then all of a sudden you get back to races last summer. That numbers put you in the mix. There's a 75 buyer on the grass, a 65, a 70. All of a sudden you bring some numbers in, and again, if the turf is playing a little bit more front, I think they send from the spot going the mile and the 16th. Try to clear and cross over into the first turn. So I thought maybe just a horse if you're looking for a price.
Which I like because it's not something you would think this horse would do just based on the recent, because we're just so far back, but maybe on the turf and maybe coming back and actually beat our favorite, even though it was on the synth, beat the favorite and then ran miserably next time. But still, I looked at that horse and I was a little unsure of what to do with that one, but I'm with you. I think this is a tough race because I do think the favorite is vulnerable and the lower horses are vulnerable. So when you have that, and we know at Hawthorne, every time we do one of these pick fours, I think there's a bomber that comes in. So you just have to figure out which one it's going to be.
Right. You saw it twice last week when you did it. So definitely.
It's funny. I had not the one paid like 150. I didn't have that one. The other one I had on my grid on our picks. And I was like, boy, this is going to pay nice. And then the $150 horse sort of blew all that.
Here's my killer. The horse that paid $150.
Yeah,
I had picked on top in the start prior. I just didn't go back to the horse. It was just one of those. Picked on top, was disappointed, got off the horse, and then it pays 75 to 1.
Hey, Paisan Phil, how's it going, my friend? They're all right. All right, last race. We're going to go to the 9th. Let me scroll here. We're going to close this out, see if we can't hit this pick 4. Claiming 5,000. We're going 6 furlongs on the dirt. Purse 11.5. We got 9 horses, and the favorite, nice and lukewarm, which we like to see, the number 9, Lima Zulu. You are going with.
I want to see your picks here. Yeah, you said we were so far off.
So for everybody watching, so Jim sends me his picks. He doesn't see my picks, and I'm looking at it. And this happened last week. I don't know if Emily told you this. So Emily emailed me her picks last week, and they were so different from mine. I was thinking, did I handicap the wrong sequence?
Same race.
So I was like, I know Emily knows these horses better than I do, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? And then when you sent this, I was like, you went. If I remember, you went. Did you go all in this one? And you went all.
So tough.
But your top 3, I don't have any of the same top 3. So I was like, let's talk about this one because I want to see what the hell I'm doing wrong. So you're going with the number 1 Idea Man. But obviously, if you're going all, you think this one's just wide open.
So one of the beauties of my job as director of racing is I get to go through and determine the order of races as well each and every day.
Nice.
And so I looked at this race immediately and said, hey, this is a great race to end the card because you're going to end the late pick 4. You're going to end the pick 5. You're going to have the high 5. It's a great race because nobody should be a heavy favorite. So it's one of those where if you're going to get out of this race, you're going to do pretty well. But I thought this was just a wildly tough race. And it's for this reason. Mad Dragon, Winging Ways, and Lima Zulu all can show speed. They all want the front. Any of them could make the top, but they could also all 3 go. And I thought the race could completely fall apart. So if that's the case, and you're sitting there between the 5, 7, and 9 on the lead, and you see what right there for everything. I'm just looking to the horses that are kind of sitting in that next flight, the 1 horse, the 3 horse, the 6 horse, who are just going to kind of bide their time, wait there and try to make that move late. They're all going to be prices in here. But again, I hit the all for the pick 4. I just thought this was a wildly tough race, could be a contentious pace, and chance for things to just kind of fall apart on the front end.
Yeah, no, yeah, I don't. It's not like I was sitting there. I'm trying to think. Oh no, because I had the 4-2 cookie rule, which I don't
You had
really
two
like.
right. You had two other horses that I didn't even mention in those 6.
I know that's just what it's amazing to me. So
Yeah.
I'm either my horses are just plain old crap, or
Not
we're
at
going to
all.
see if this one. And again, I don't like the name because I don't have a 2 cookie rule. I like to eat as many cookies as possible in one sitting. But here's what I thought. I just thought if what you talked about, there is a hot pace up front, or at least we get a pretty decent pace up front. This is one that, yeah, you look at that last one, the nice 0 buyer, lost by 59, but it looked like just something happened, something went wrong. Obviously, this was way back. What month was that? In December. So now
Yep.
we're taking some time off. But if I go backwards, I thought cutting back to a sprint, and also it's just better on fast dirt. So I assume I didn't check the weather or anything.
It'll
I
be
assume we're
fast.
going to
Yep.
have it fast and dry.
Yep.
So you look at this horse, 11, 16 out of 31 on fast dirt. Doesn't win a lot at Hawthorne, 2 for 21, but hits the board. I was looking at it going, I don't love everything here, but if we can get some pace up front, I think this is a horse who's shown can pass horses and shown who can pass horses and actually win, not pass horses from, 10th to 6th. You see here was able to close and win. Now, again, the company might have been different. The horses might have been different, but has closed and could even sit a little bit closer. Again, if whatever ailed him that left him to be off for the last 6 months, if he's fine now, and he's been working.
Yep.
I was looking at it going, he's been working steady. I don't know if you know anything about the horse or anything, but I thought I'm going to take a shot with a horse that might just roll off the pace at a big number.
This is one of those horses too. This is a barn, Pete, where a lot of these horses were sent over to Mahoning Valley during the winter.
Yep.
And then they got caught up in the quarantine that was there in Mahoning Valley. The gates were closed for some time. So because of that, they had to wait for the quarantine to be lifted, and Mahoning Valley carried it all the way till the meet was over. So you had a horse that was kind of stuck there until mid-April,
Oh, I gotcha.
and then kind of trying to get back and get rolling. So that was the thing. They were like ready, they were going, then they were trying to get back out and try to find where they could go. So that was the thing with 2 cookie rule.
I like that. That's a better answer than it was just sitting there because it just wasn't fit and couldn't get back on the track. So I kind of like that answer. Anybody else you want to hit in this one? Like I said, we're all over the board. So
yeah, the 6 is the one I want to touch on briefly. Barefoot Bootlegger. It was a much improved race in that last out. This was a horse that put together some really good races and sprints last year, carried it over into those races at Horseshoe Indianapolis at the end of the year. The 71 buyer can probably win this race. The 62-61 probably puts you right in the mix, but at least you saw some improvement in that last out. Burgos has been coming in from Horseshoe Indianapolis mainly to ride for John Herron on the weekends here at Hawthorne. So you see 15 starts, hit the board in 6 out of those 15, but he's starting to pick up some more amounts, but he's doing it for this barn specifically. And then if he picks up anything else, it's worth taking a look at. But I thought this was a horse at 12-1 that maybe is in with a little bit of a shot too.
Yeah, and I mean, as we're going to talk about, we already spoiled your part in this pick 4, but if you're hitting the all button, obviously, there's nothing worse than the all button and the favorite wins.
Right.
And how often does that happen? So you're going to be looking for anything here, and I'm hoping this is just a crazy. Let's heat the pace up. Let's come from the clouds. Let's do whatever we can, and then let's see where the chips fall.
Right.
I did want to hit one more.
Yeah.
Kennesaw, I thought this looked like the most logical horse. You got Ravelli, you got the Ravelli-Mojica combination, which dirt sprints at Hawthorne, 42% wins, 77% in the money, and those were not small sample sizes either. Although Ravelli, surprisingly, second after the claim, I saw 2 for 18 on dirt at Hawthorne, but he won the last and Mojica was up. The only time second after the claim, Mojica was up, won the race. I just thought had races good enough to win. And this was the one that if I was going to go with a lower price horse, I think gets the trip that you were talking about, sitting in that middle flight, that 2, and I think is talented, in great hands, and should get the trip.
Larry's a smart guy too. Larry had this horse long ago, and Larry liked this horse. But again, you look at the races, he's not going to claim the horse for 30, claim the horse for 40. He waited till it got back down to the level where it made sense to claim. And then he jumped in for this racehorse. So he wanted the horse back at the right spot. So he's got the horse spotted nicely here. If somebody wants to take it from him, they can do so again. But I do like where this horse is spotted.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, let's go to our tickets here. So I am going to read yours off, and then you can talk to me. So our pick 4, Jim, is going single in the first leg. He's going 5 with 6, 7, 9 with 1, 7 with all, and that's $27. What was your strategy here?
You know what? Tightrope is a horse that I'm convinced is going to make the top and take him the whole way around. So if sometimes you have to single early on and then try to spread later, I think that was the race where you had that opportunity to say, okay, to me, it's a free square, and I'm going to take it and move on. After that, it kind of comes down to that race. If I can beat Rivs on a roll in that next race and have that opportunity to do so, then I have a good shot there. But again, it's really going to get to that last race. Lima Zulu will be the favorite on the outside. It's a vulnerable favorite. If you can catch a price and you're alive there, for $27, you're going to make much more than $27. So that was kind of the way I was thinking for this pick 4.
No, I like it. And again, I think it helps for you guys. I think I know Emily went skinny when she was on last week. I think it helps for you guys to narrow where I sit there and go, I don't know the horses enough to be super confident, but I know who I like, and I know that I have a couple prices. So for my ticket, I'm going 5, 7 with 6, 8, 9 with 1, 7, 8, 9 with 2, 4, 5, 9. And I don't think I have anything out of the ordinary. In the last 3 legs, I sort of went with my top choices because I thought they're wide open. I don't want to go too skinny. And in the first leg, because I saw some of the funkiness I thought with Tightrope, and I wanted to talk to you about that, I figure, let me see if I can try and beat him. So if you can beat that chalk in the first leg, then if we catch a price later, then we can get something that actually pays. So
right. And the one thing that's going to be a little bit harder, last week we had 4 races on the turf each day. So you had a good idea on how the turf was playing earlier in the card before you got to the late pick 4. Saturday, just the way races filled, we filled a lot more on the dirt, just 2 races on Saturday on the turf. So you're not really going to have that idea. And maybe that's beneficial for trying to go a little bit deeper in there with 2 on the turf Saturday, 3 on the turf Sunday, but both of them are in that late pick 4 sequence. So should be a very good sequence too.
And that's good too, because maybe people won't know how to bet it. So maybe we can get a price on some of those ones that we don't like. Anything else you want to hit before we wrap it up?
You know what? The cool thing, we're getting 2-year-olds starting to come around. 2 2-year-old races filled on Sunday. One of them was 7, the other with 9. Larry Ravelli, again, is always very good with 2-year-olds. He stated it publicly, hey, I train for speed. So if you're looking, you want to see gate drills that are fast for his 2-year-old runners. If you're seeing a gate drill that's not quite as fast, then you may want to look a little bit elsewhere in those races also.
Awesome. That's a great tip. Yeah. I like the 2-year-olds. It's fun when they come along, and it's fun if you have, I guess, that little bit of knowledge that just gives you the advantage on someone who all they have is what's on the page.
Right.
It's got to be so much more beneficial, because what we see, we look at the works, you look at the breeding, but it's a crapshoot. First time out, who the hell knows? But I love them. I love the 2s. Yeah. All right. So that wraps it up. We got the Hawthorne pick 4. Let me see if I can remember everybody that popped on today. So for my co-host for Hawthorne, Jim Miller, for my co-host on the show earlier for Thistledown, Ohio Derby Day, Paul Halloran, and for the little pop-in we had from Howard Kravitz, the world traveler now who spends his days in the European just spending money everywhere. I'm Pete Visco. Thanks for joining us for episode 358 of Picks and Ponies. As usual, please crush your bets. Take care, everybody. See ya.
If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.